So you found your dream home. You're in escrow. You've already deposited earnest money. Heck, you've already completed the home inspection. You're thinking, I'm home free. I haven't heard from my real estate broker in 11 days, and it feels like an eon. I'm loving the peace and quiet. And then all of a sudden, you get this terrible voicemail that says, I'm sorry, we have a problem. Your appraisal has come in below value. What the heck are we going to do? Welcome back to Living in Spokane, Washington. If you're new here, I'm your real estate broker, Hunter McKay. If you're looking to prepare yourself for home ownership or just want to start getting ready for your move to Spokane, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Please reach out, give me a call on my cell phone, or reach out to any of the links in the description, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. So what is an appraisal anyway? It's a third-party assessment of the home completed on behalf of the lender. Because let's face it, they're giving you a bunch of money to buy an asset, and they want to make sure that you're not overpaying for it. Because if you stop paying on the mortgage and they have to foreclose on you, they want to know that what you bought is actually worth the money that they gave you. So let's talk about how an appraisal report actually comes into play. Usually what happens is the buyer is the one responsible for ordering the appraisal. Technically speaking, it's the buyer's lender, but the buyer is still the one that has to pay for it. And it's usually between $800 and $1,000 for most properties, can even be more expensive in certain areas. So we really want to make sure that when we do one, we get it right, or we're at least anticipating what the outcome can be. When a third-party appraiser is called, it's because the lender is ready to fully underwrite, and they want to know, okay, we've already checked up on the person we're loaning money to, but what about the house they want to buy? Is it going to be an effective loan-to-value situation for them? The reason the lender needs the appraisal is because they've already given you a loan product. Let's use an example. Say you're a home buyer putting 5% down conventional. The way that you're being underwritten is to make sure that you can afford 95% as a mortgage. However, if the value of the home is $100,000 less than you've agreed to pay, then you actually need to come up with that extra chunk of money. The lender isn't going to give you $100,000 over the appraised value. They want to know that you're at or below the appraised value in your actual purchase price. If you're offering to pay more than the home is appraised at, you're going to have to bring that extra in cash. In order for an appraiser to do his job, what he does is goes and inspects the physical property and does a review. First, he wants to make sure that there are no issues that would violate the loan terms. These are things like safety issues, health concerns, mold can be a big one. If you're getting an FHA loan, you can't have any peeling paint. That would be considered a violation. And so certain things like that. But all of those things are just considerations against the property. It's not necessarily to do with the value. And so an appraisal report can come in either above value, below value, or right at value, and it can either have considerations or it cannot have any considerations. And so a great example of this is you buy a house at $350,000, you're an FHA buyer with 5% down, the appraisal comes back and says, yes, it's a $350,000 home, but I found peeling paint in the upper left-hand corner of the rafters. It's a health concern because it could have lead in it. You need to repaint and get rid of all of the paint chips. This appraisal would be at value, but would have a consideration that the painting had to be completed before the deal could close. If you get an appraisal report and it says it's at value or it's above value, you're good to go, especially if it comes in above value, because that means that you have equity already built into your home. That would mean in that same $350,000 home, maybe the appraised value comes in at $375,000. Now, the great news is this is your appraisal report. The seller is not notified about the above value because, frankly, they'd probably be pissed off and they'd want to renegotiate. But it's not legally their opportunity. It's just your benefit because you were the one that got the appraisal. If it comes in at value, you'll probably notify the seller, hey, congrats, it's at value and we're ready to close. Everyone's going to be happy about that expectation. But what happens if it comes below value? That's really the problem. If the bank says, sorry, your home value is only $340,000, are you going to be able to come up with that $10,000 in cash? Or is the seller going to reduce price? Or is there a third option? Let's take a look. The first thing that you want to do when you get a low value appraisal is call your real estate broker and ask, do you agree with the low appraisal? Let's take a look and really look at the market and ask ourselves, is the bank right? Because if the bank is right, then we have an issue and we should probably start negotiating with the seller or looking into our own piggy bank to see if we have enough money to cover the difference. But if we disagree with the comps that were pulled by the appraiser, we can challenge those comps in what's called a reconsideration of value. Now, some buyers might say, well, Hunter, why should I challenge what the appraiser said? Isn't it in my benefit if I can get the seller to agree to a lower price? Sure, it is. But why would the seller just agree to a lower price if you haven't done the homework yet to prove that you're correct? That's why I always recommend to my clients, start by trying to agree with the value. See if the bank is correct. Look at the comps and let's take a look at what the actual other sold comps available have to say. If we can find comps that obviously pull the value above where the appraiser said, we need to submit those comps and we need to do a reconsideration of value by pushing back on the lender and saying, hey, we found these other pieces of information. We noticed they weren't considered in the appraisal. Can you tell us why? After we've had that conversation, if the bank still comes back to us and says, no, we're holding the appraised value below what the purchase price contract is, that's when you go back to the seller and you say, look, seller, I've done my best. I wanted to buy your home. I've done all of my homework. I did the inspection. The appraiser says the price isn't where we have it agreed to. It's $10,000 less. Is there something that we can do to meet in the middle? Would you come down and meet me at my price? And it's just a conversation because the seller would probably like to sell this home. But if you're in a really busy market like COVID, they might tell you to kick rocks and go away because there's likely someone waiting. If you're buying a home the same week that I'm filming this video, the seller's probably going to say, yeah, I'll go $10,000 less, and can I buy your Netflix subscription for the first year? Pretty please don't leave me. There's two things about how to dispute the appraisal I want to be clear about. The first thing to be aware of is that when you're doing a VA loan, there is a formal process called Tidewater, and it means the value has come in below the contract price. You immediately go into Tidewater and you have a forced reconsideration of value where everyone, including the listing broker, can help gather comps and submit them back to the bank to reconsider if they have made something wrong or they've had a mistake that causes them to think the value is less than it should be. The reconsideration of value process for all other loan types is not mandatory. If the buyer wants to walk away at that stage, they get to. If the seller doesn't want to reduce the price, they don't have to. It's just a willing conversation between two parties that are hoping to hold everything together. And so that's why, even though it's not required, I still recommend that the reconsideration of value process be completed in exactly the same way that you would complete a Tidewater process. It's already there. The lenders are familiar with it. If the appraiser and the lender and the listing broker are all willing to play ball, then you as the buyer and buyer's agent should also play ball. But if that falls short, then you have to make a decision. Do I want this house bad enough to pay the difference? And if the seller won't reduce the price, am I capable of paying that difference? Obviously, you might start the negotiation by asking the seller, hey, will you reduce price? But if they say no, you have to be prepared to take the next action, and walking away might be one of the good options. One of the big benefits of having a competent and strong real estate broker is to resolve a problem like this. Because at the end of the day, this is a moment where everyone can get highly emotional and confrontational and do a negotiation style I call 2 steps forward and 4 steps back. It's a bad song. At the end of the day, you want everyone working together towards a common outcome. And so if the listing broker and buyer's agent can agree on a solid purchase price and can agree on where the comps land, even if it's lower than the current contract price, it might be a good idea to have everyone have a quick discussion about how can we keep this deal together? And if we don't keep this deal together, how likely is it that either party is actually going to go away with a better outcome in a different home or a different buying situation? Most of the time when the appraisal is low, the answer is figure it out amongst yourselves and both parties will be better for it. One of the biggest ways to avoid being disappointed by a low appraisal is make sure that you've run the comps in advance. Before you write an offer on something, have your agent run comps and show you the comps that they've used. Why is the home going to sell for that price? Why wouldn't it sell for this price? If it's overpriced, is there anything that makes it sizably different than the other comps that we can find value in? I just wrote an offer recently in Blaine, Washington, other side of the state, north of Seattle, and the home was listed at $475. But it's identical to 2 other properties that have sold recently in that same neighborhood for $515 and $520. They're in a little bit better condition, but not that much different. And so with a few phone calls on properties that I've never been inside of, I was able to determine really close to what that comparable value is likely to be. I recommended my client offer $520. He decided to offer $510. In the end, we still won the deal, even though there was a competing offer at $518. Now, obviously, me and the competing offer were looking at the same comps, sharpening our pencil the same way, and coming up with the same ideological answers on where we're going to land. We won't know until the appraisal comes in, but ultimately I feel very confident because I have 2 extraordinarily similar comps within a mile of the subject property, and they've all sold within the last couple of months, so I know that they're good comps. So I feel very confident that even though we offered above list, which we had to in order to win, we're still unlikely to get a bad appraisal. And if we do, we'll navigate that at the time. Remember, guys, the important thing is to stay communicative and stay flexible, because the Gumby and flexible party in real estate almost always comes out ahead. Have you ever had a terrible appraisal experience? Please share it with us below. I would love to hear your most awful horror story, and I might have been able to fix it. Thank you so much for staying to the end, guys. I hope you guys found this video helpful. I know it doesn't mean much to you, but it means a lot to me. Please hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. And if you ever need anything in the future, don't forget to reach out.